away to pursuing liberty and justice for all. So while I can, I have to say for any patriotic all-American. Well, folks, that's quite an intro. On to our show. Our show is about finding our fit. And that gentleman was complaining about the fact that we haven't done a good job of finding it just yet. However, there's hope in the wings. There's hope in the wings because we have a crew here who will talk about helping us find our fit. So don't despair. Don't wait for Superman, but wait for your super neighbors. And speaking of super neighbors, let me introduce Susanne and her crew of Planet Pictures. So, well, take it away, Susanna.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Susanna Wu-Pong Calvert, and this is Finding Our Fit. The purpose of our show is to help us all find our place in our crazy and beautiful world. And in so doing, we will enrich our world and create a brighter future for everyone and everything, especially Earth. I'm also the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, whose mission is to also help everyone find our fit through mental, emotional, and relationship resilience skill education. Check us out after the show and find your fit with us at healingedu.org. We do this show to help us make sense of our crazy and beautiful world so that we can choose the more beautiful side. Often we focus on the crazy things in our life, forgetting that the flip side is where we find and create opportunity, wisdom, and healing. In Finding Our Fit, we focus on learning and growth, how to become wiser and more resilient by adopting a healthier relationship with ourselves and everybody and everything. It's important to embrace both sides of the yin and yang, both the challenging and rewarding parts of life, to create balance and conditions for healing. It's a practice we choose every day. Today, on Finding Our Fit, we're discussing one of my favorite topics, leadership. Leadership is very near and dear to my heart because to me, it's all about creating positive change. Leadership provides the catalysis for transformation. To me, it's not about assuming that the current state is bad, although improvement is always possible, but rather that the current state will always be changing and how we manage and optimize our lives through that change. Leadership means a lot of things. My personal experience is that leadership occurs when others do not want to step up. That's when I tend to find myself in leadership positions, almost by default. But leadership also occurs at every level of the so-called management or leadership ladder. It's not always just the named leader that's at the top of the ladder that's actually influencing the change process the most. I have to admit that one of my pet peeves are people who, with those leadership titles, who abdicate their influence and rely on their authority and power to get things done, or they do nothing at all. I'm sure great empires have resulted from such strategies, but I imagine there will not be a lot of loyalty to such leaders. My own definition of leadership is to help those around you to thrive and be successful. And it doesn't matter whether you're at the top or the bottom of that ladder. That sort of leadership service is available and needed from everyone. I have loved doing the leadership development work I've done over the years when I was both at University of Georgia and VCU and beyond, and I'm really proud of that work. But it pales in comparison to what we are going to learn from today's guest, Myra Goodman Smith, President and CEO of Leadership Metro Richmond, who is here on Finding Our Fit to talk with us about the leader within. So Myra, and we also have Jamie Isley in the studio. Thank you for joining Finding Our Fit. Here.
Thank you for our invitation.
So Myra, could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Thank you. I love the invitation. I love talking about LMR and talking about leadership. And so I'm delighted that your listeners if be interested in the subject matter. I'm Myra Goodman Smith. I am the president and CEO of Leadership Metro Richmond. I've been in this role for about 13 years. Before that, I spent about 23 years at United Way in numerous vice presidential roles. I am originally from Richmond. This is my home. And so I've been engaged in community leadership since I was like 18 years old. We're not going to talk about how long ago that was. But I've been engaged in leadership, and it's an exciting subject. And our work at Leadership Metro Richmond, we connect and prepare diverse community leaders for service. And so for preparing individuals to just come forward and, as you said, lead in our communities, especially in the area of community leadership. Not so much about professional leadership, but about community leadership we focus on. And we've been around since 1980, so we've been around about 43 years and have touched many and developed many community leaders in this region.
Well, for those of you listeners who may not be familiar with Leadership Metro Richmond, it is a very highly esteemed organization and series of programs in our community. And they really prepare very illustrious alumni who go out all over and do great things. And I am really quite envious, wishing I could be part of that community because it's really the movers and shakers. And LMR does such a fine job in preparing them for community leadership, and the Richmond area region gets to enjoy the benefits of such great work. So, and I'm looking forward to having you on the show, Myra. So I'm so grateful for you joining us today. So could, and I really also love the niche of LMR of being focused on community leadership. So could you just spend a little bit of time talking about what is leadership and what is community leadership from your point of view?
Perspective. You know, there's so many, like you said, there's so many definitions out there of what leadership is. And when we look at community leadership, we're talking about the leadership that we do within the community, oftentimes that is serving on nonprofit boards, PTAs, advocates, being engaged in the community. That's the difference from the professional piece of it. And so from our set, oftentimes the definition of leadership has been about being able to influence individuals, getting people to influence people and guide your followers down a specific road, or those in a team. But for us, leadership is more so as a set of behaviors used to help people be the best that they can be. It's about aligning their collective direction, helping them execute their strategies, and to continue to grow. So it's about the interaction, how we have with individuals. The point about leadership is that you have a desire to serve and the ability to lead. And that's the big difference when it comes to community leadership. But this can also occur with any institution in an area that it's about serving individuals first and then having the desire to lead. So you're motivated by serving others. That's why we're here in the first place. I always tell folks, we're not here just to gain and gather as much as we can for ourselves. It's about how do we serve others and help them fulfill their dreams, their desires. How do we move the community forward through our leadership? And it comes with the fact of service first. Leaders that serve don't think less of themselves, they think of themselves less. They're always looking outwardly more so than inwardly. It's like, what can I do to serve you? And you can do that. That can happen within a for-profit industry. I mean, how do you serve your employees as a leader? How do you, and there's a test out there that can kind of use to see if your work is about service.
I love that, Myra. And I guess there's probably leaders of both types where no matter where you are, whether it's in the community or versus professional leadership, or regardless of the sector, there's leaders of all types and stripes. And just because you have a nonprofit mission doesn't necessarily mean that the leader is looking outwardly. They might be looking inwardly, looking to take care of themselves first. So regardless of where you're serving, that is always, I guess, a desirable quality, but may not always happen. So what's the main difference between community leadership versus professional leadership? I mean, other than being a location, is it very different? Otherwise,
but not very different. The attributes are very much the same. What you need to bring to the table, but the way I see it is that when it comes to professional leadership, it's to say I have a role of president and CEO. And people who have roles, authoritative leadership, that means their titles give them authority to do certain things. And so in a business, I have the authority to either give out awards, but also I can give out consequences. That's the leadership role I have. People who have titles in companies, they have that leadership ability. So in essence, it's not a lot about influencing, because you got to get it done or you get the award and consequences. When you talk about leadership in the community, if you're working ahead of a PTA, you can't make the members do anything. You don't have a reward and consequences. You can't make people, you can't, you be a coach of a team, but everyone's there as a volunteer. So there's a difference in being a community leader. You have to be, I'd like to say, savvy and have the attributes of service. And that's where that service piece comes in. People want to know that you care. And people kind of go, really? When you're working in community, the sense that you're caring for those that you're working with and those that you're leading makes a big difference. So being of service to individuals means that I mentioned the test earlier. The test is, do the work that I do as a leader and work as a leader that serves. The people whom I touch, do they grow? Are they wiser? Are they freer? Are they better in life? That's the measurement for us to look at, to really think about servant leadership. And people don't like the word servant because they don't. So we kind of say leaders who serve and leaders who serve first. So the motivation is not, I want to go be a leader. The motivation is that I want to serve. And I want to serve others. Then people have that feeling to desire to then lead. But let me say this point. Ordinary people can be extraordinary leaders. It's not about a title. And you take a step back and think about those individuals in your life that you see and admire as leaders. Think about how they showed up. Think about how they make you feel in the work that they did.
Yes, absolutely. That's such a huge point. And I want to talk about that more, but I'm going to just sort of call Ron to please change the screen so we can see Myra. Ron, are you there? I'm going to ask Ron to just change the visual here because we really ought to see our guest over me.
Okay, I can see myself, but you can't see me. Okay.
Well, you're just a little, there we go. That's much better. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, so Myra, there was so much beautiful and rich information in there. And I feel like leadership is such an art, especially in the community. And I appreciate you pointing that out, because whether you're in a professional setting or not, if you don't have that authority where you can implement consequences, financial or performance evaluations or whatever, that the quality of the leadership becomes can make or break, right? The organization or the endeavor, and even if you do have authority, that it is somewhat limited in the sense that if you lose the goodwill of the people you're working with, but you can still make them comply, I would kind of argue maybe you won the battle, but are going to lose the war in that situation that if you're resorting to your authority, then it's probably not going to go well.
Well, you're being more of a supervisor in many ways, and a leader with authority. And so oftentimes people in that setting don't lean back on their ability to motivate or to enrich individuals or have a shared vision and bring everyone together to move everything forward. Oftentimes that heavy-fisted leadership in today's world, that's hard to do. That's hard to, even in the business world. At VCU, for example, there's a new institute, the Transformative Institute, at VCU School of Business, because they're really focusing on that leadership of caring when it comes to business, the leadership of looking at the person. Processes and procedures are very important in business, yes, but we can't ignore the people and how we motivate the individuals. And it's not about giving away the store. That's not what I'm talking about. It's about listening. It's different attributes. You need to be a good listener. If you want to help people, provide them what they need. And that's a big part about servant leadership. Providing and dealing with and understanding the needs of those of your followers or those that you're serving. What are their needs? And helping to deliver on those needs, help them find what they need. And so in essence, as an employer, my staff needs tools to get the job done. As a leader, I need to enable them to do their work. And in essence, I serve them by giving them the information and tools to get the job done. It's about service. So I can help them be better. I always tell staff, when you come into my employee, I want you to be better when you leave. That you learn different things and you're better at what you do. That's having that motivation. Not so much I'm gonna hit the mark at the end of the day with profit and hit the mark when it comes to goals, but in essence, you want that growth there for your staff, and that's appreciated, I think, by staff and individuals that you work with, that you want to help them grow and be better. And that's a big piece of servant leadership.
Beautiful. So this is WRWK 93.9 FM. I'm Susanna Wu-Pong Calvert here on Finding Our Fit. We are visiting today with Myra Goodman Smith, President and CEO of Leadership Metro Richmond. We're talking about the leader within. And we'd love to hear from you listeners. Give us a call at 804-464-1089. Or if you're on Facebook, pop something in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So Myra, I just really love where you've been taking this conversation and the importance of effective leaders, and really understanding or attending to how they make other people feel, followers or their colleagues, whoever, and this idea of caring and looking at others as being an important priority and an effective strategy for transformational leadership, and understanding and meeting people's needs. So, would you say that this is a modern idea of leadership? Like, is this fairly new? Because I'm not sure that has always been on the radar of leaders, that maybe like an older model has been about being the charismatic leader and like that being more important than, so that's all about you. And instead now it sounds like it's flipped to be more external facing, as you mentioned. And I also want to really thank you for talking about listening, because we've had a number of shows on Finding Our Fit about the importance of listening and how to be better listeners. So does this reflect a shift in leadership theory?
I don't want to shift this idea of leaders that serve. Robert Greenleaf wrote this book in 1970, so but the idea is not new. I mean, from the beginning of time, when we think about leaders that we see and those that we admire, even back in history, we see those who cared about others, who served others. It was about service. It wasn't about service to themselves and boosting themselves up. It was about how could they move individuals and the groups and communities forward. And so that idea, that sense of leadership has been around. It's kind of like it's being presented more and more every day. And let me say this point: going through COVID really helped change and shift, not help change, but shifted kind of the vision of leaders a little bit. We
Okay.
became more concerned about our employees and their needs. We became more concerned about trust, and we became more about their well-being and about their belonging when it came to when we went through the pandemic. It shifted our thoughts because we always cared about our staff and thought about our staff, but we really needed to take a mental health kind of note when it came to all of us getting through the pandemic. And so, as a leader, it was challenging for leaders to be able not to have the answers because we always think we do have the answers or not even know what's going to happen next. We were in a vulnerable state. Leaders were in a vulnerable place, not knowing and not be able to say, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. But it was our role to give hope. It was our role to give a sense of trust. It was a role that we can all work together to move this forward. And another thing I saw in leadership during that time, we were creative. Leaders really started thinking about different ways of doing things because we had to. We were in a place where we had to do that. So you see that a lot. So when you're doing things and changing things, you're changing things for people, the interaction, how do we work together? It just really kind of opened our eyes to really think about how well individuals are doing from a mental health standpoint and how we work together moving things forward. I saw that a lot.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and as horrible and challenging as the pandemic was, it is also good to know that there has been silver linings. And thank you for pointing it out so beautifully about made. I think it taught a lot of people a lot of things about what's important um, at
Yes.
work or anywhere there's leadership required, and a shift in the focus. Maybe even though the servant leadership idea has been around for more than half a decade, but to really illustrate and demand a more outward looking, compassionate, um, 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 empathic style of leadership, which feels like it was just way overdue. So I am super grateful for that. And that is so beautiful. Before we continue, I just want to thank the comment, read out a comment from the Women's Business Center, who is just applauding our guest as what an amazing person to have and the truest servant leader. So what a beautiful compliment from the Women's Business Center. Thank you.
Very nice.
So I'm so glad to hear about this silver lining and the much what feels like an overdue focus on others, and not just for their productivity, but really for their overall well-being, right? And this mental health, then their mental and emotional health needs finally being acknowledged, even though it's been a crisis that's been simmering under a lot of people's radars. And I feel like that's a very important silver lining of the pandemic, is maybe that we're finally acknowledging it and going to do something about it. So thank you for pointing that out as well, Myra. Well, I know you've talked about diversity too, and it sounds like that is, I don't know, it's almost like getting a bad name now, which I feel like, I mean, I don't mind just saying that I feel like that's a huge step backwards and in the wrong direction. But what can you talk about that a little bit, about diversity and why that matters, especially with regard to leadership?
One thing that Leadership Metro Richmond was built upon the idea that we all need to know how to talk to each other, and we all need to know how to work together with one another, regardless of our differences. And so that's pretty much why it was created. So our classes and our programs are intentionally diverse. Our flagship program, which is Leadership Quest, starts as a 10-month program where we've had over 2,000 graduates out of that program, diverse graduates. And we really look at the community itself and recognize that for solution building to occur, and for us to move forward, we need to have different voices at the table. Diversity, even though people are trying to kind of beat up the titles, that it's amazing when you get different perspectives, different lived experiences to the table. Ideas come from all different corners of the room. And to have that present as you're working in the community, on nonprofit boards, if you will. And it's not about checking a box. It's just recognizing that to have that ability to, because the world is complex. We're just going to get it. The human service sector is just complex. Our problems are complex. Our opportunities are complex. And so in essence, we need to be armed with different perceptions and ideas to help us work through them. That creativity and innovation happens when you have diverse thoughts at the table. You have all single-minded people sitting at the table, you're going down that same road. But to bring in that diversity, and so what we do at LMR is that we talk about how do we work within a diverse environment? How do we lead within the midst of diversity? It's there. You nothing to do about it. Diversity, it's there. So in essence, how do we be effective? How do we talk, act, decide, and interact with one another as leaders in a diverse setting? We need to understand each other, and that's why we have our programs. We connect diverse leaders so that we can have conversations and understandings, and so that we can move forward, understand. We have a program called, it's like in our program, we have dialogue versus debate. It's about dialogue. It's about understanding why you believe what you believe and understanding why I believe what I believe. Not that I'm trying to change your mind. And this seems like, oh, we want to try to change someone's mind. But as we have more conversation, open, authentic conversations, I think we will move so many things forward.
And well said. Thank you. I do want to point out that a lot of the things you said have a fair amount of research evidence backing it up. So this is not just your opinion, right? This is demonstrated research.
It's been studies across the board when it comes to diverse tables and having diverse tables. And one thing we found, and one thing we've seen in our class and our programs, if you bring diverse individuals to the table and you have a common goal, but you have no chiefs, if you will. Everybody, that's community leadership. Everybody's here, but everybody's working together for the same goal. That is magical in many ways, because you can get so much done and so much innovation and creativity can come out of those conversations. And we do that within our program and the Leadership Quest, where we bring diversity. Classes are intentionally diverse so that we can have those conversations, so leaders are prepared to work and be leaders in diverse settings and work with anyone. When you mentioned listening a few minutes ago, it's about listening without judgment. Listening is important, but listening have acceptance. Those are some attributes of being a leader that serves. Have acceptance. I accept that you exist. Accept that you have a place at the table. But also I need to listen carefully to you and hear you and read you and have that conversation. And those things just make things better and more engaging in the community when we do that.
Yes, it's well said. So true. And so just to reiterate, so diversity helps us be more creative and innovative and be better problem solvers as groups. and to really be able to identify and address and manage complexity, because life is just so infinitely complex. And if we just have like this, like an iceberg, like that common metaphor, and everybody's looking at the same place on the iceberg, we're not going to really be able to understand and manage that that issue. So, but having as many different points of view, we have a better chance of being able to reach our objective.
And there are a couple of benefits from that. Number one, we have blind spots. So, so that they negatively impact the ability to make the best decisions. So those blind spots removed. You get more perspective. And also you get lived experiences. That's something I really encourage nonprofit boards to do. Bring people to the table with lived experiences based on what you're doing as an organization. So in essence, you're dealing with a certain issue. Have individuals who have gone through that problem or concern, or even their families or people who are passionate about it or who experienced it, have them on your board. Have those conversations, not just seeing it from on high, but also getting people to the table who have experienced what the organization is working on. So when you're talking about homelessness, get individuals who are formerly homeless, or even individuals who are homeless. Get them in the spaces in some kind of way to hear them and hear what they have to say, so that we're more educated about their lives and their needs, but also they can bring perspective on how we make better decisions about their needs and how they need to go forward.
Yeah, and then you're going to be more successful because you're actually meeting their needs as opposed to just guessing, right?
I mean, we have a tendency to think we have all the answers. We do, but we don't. And so where do we need to get more insight to things that we're working on? Go to the folks who are having those lived experiences. Also go to the people who are passionate. And we're going to talk about board service in a few minutes, but it's really who's at the table.
Yes. Great points. Thank you. So this is WRWK 93.9 FM. This is Finding Our Fit. I'm Susanna Wu-Pong Calvert, here with Myra Goodman Smith, President and CEO of Leadership Metro Richmond. We are discussing the leader within, one of my favorite topics. And we'd love to hear from you listeners. Give us a call or pop something in the chat on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, our telephone number is 804-464-1089, and it's an old school phone that rings in the studio. So make that phone ring. We'd love to hear from you. So Myra, I want to make sure that we leave some room for discussing more about Leadership Metro Richmond. It's like a gem in the community that I think probably, I don't know, most Richmonders probably know about, but maybe not everybody knows as much as they would benefit from knowing. So can you talk about what you do and why you do it? You've given some of that already, but like what are your offerings and how might people get engaged?
Yes, our primary flagship program is Leadership Quest, and that is where individuals spend 10 months with us in community leadership and community leadership development. And so they come to us from all walks of life. And the classes, you can have CEOs, you can have folks who are not CEOs, you can have educators and folks who are retired, and folks from all walks of life coming through this program. That's the diversity, once again, is the magic of it. And so we bring together about 60 to 65 individuals. They spend 10 months together and then get leadership development. They learn, number one, we connect diverse leaders, and I think I mentioned this earlier, for better understanding and better cooperation, but also we increase the knowledge, awareness, and perspectives of leaders on community issues. So we talk about housing and workforce development and education and mental health and physical health, and those issues that our community faces. And so, and you hear from different perspectives on these issues, what the challenges are, what the answers are. Because the goal of the program is that as individuals come into our program, they will go out and be and get engaged in our community as leaders. So in essence, we want to arm them with tools and knowledge to do so. So along with that knowledge and different perspectives, we give them leadership tools such as storytelling, which is a powerful piece of something leaders should all know how to do, is storytelling, so people can see your vision and see the stories that you want to share. We also talk about, dialogue versus debate and how to work with others. And we talk about DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion also as it relates to community. And so individuals come in and understand our assets and our challenges that we have in our community. So we create an environment of understanding and respect. So in essence, when individuals come into our programs, they are authentic. Say what you have to say and have a safe place to say it. And that's one thing that we do is connecting leaders. So that's Leadership Quest. And individuals can apply. The applications open up in February, and these classes start in September. We're about to start another class very soon. So we have those, and we've been doing that for 43 years. We have 43 years of classes. Also, as you go through the program and become a graduate at LMR, there's alumni activities that we have, continuous learning. That is one of our values at United Way. You need to continue. We need to continue to learn. You can never learn too much. And so learn more about our organization, learn more about our community. The other piece that we really want to touch on is that we not only talk about education and mental health and housing and transportation, but how all those things interconnect. To have our leaders have a kind of a full breadth of view of all of those issues and how they are right now and where we land, but also how they all interconnect with one another. And so we can see that perspective. So that's Leadership Quest. And so people still knocking on the door trying to get into the program, and we're happy that they are. Another thing that we do, and the other big piece of our program, is board governance. Nonprofit board governance. Nonprofits are critical. We're a nonprofit, is LMR, but nonprofits are a serious and needed component of our region. It's just for profit. It's government, but it's nonprofits. That three-legged stool. And nonprofits, success of nonprofits is very dependent upon its staff, but also its board, because the board is the strategic guidance within nonprofits. So in essence, we found that a lot of individuals who go through our program, Leadership Quest, about over 50% of those individuals go on to nonprofit boards. So we're really focusing on preparing individuals to serve on boards. And so we do workshops year-round on board governance issues for individuals from any walk of life. If you're on a governance board in your community, if you're on a neighborhood association, any kind of nonprofit board you can think of, we can provide guidance to individuals and workshops for them. But also we have, and I'll add this piece, that along with preparing individuals for governance, nonprofit, we have thousands of nonprofits in our community. They all need board members. They have to have board members. And so going back to the point of diversity, we need the diversity of thoughts and perspectives on those boards. But also, how do people get onto boards? People say, I would love to serve on a nonprofit board. How does it happen? Every year, we have a board connector program. We're going to have one in September where we have maybe 40, 45 nonprofits there. But individuals to come in and have conversations with them about their board opportunities. It is a benefit to serve on a board, a benefit for the community, a benefit for the organization, but it's a benefit to individuals to serve on boards because you learn so much. It's a good feeling to serve on a board, and so you go back to that good feeling you're talking about, to be able to give your time along with your treasures, to give your talent to the nonprofit community is greatly needed. So we all have something to give. And how can we do that in nonprofits?
Beautiful. So you talked about, well, before I summarize and make sure you've told us everything you want to say, I want to just tell a little story before I forget. But I went to the Board Connector event and met your concierge, Gina Reeder, who had a son working here at this station. And so she suggested that I talk with the station manager, Ron Skinner, to see if there might be a show that might be appropriate for me to get on to be interviewed. And next thing I knew it, I had my show. So LMR is directly responsible for me having this show, which has been now over a year. So thank you.
Wow, that's great. I did not know that. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you for the many ripples in the community from your organization and its work. So the program's Leadership Quest, your main program. You have alumni programs for ongoing learning. You have nonprofit board governance programming as well, and there's a longitudinal program for that too, as well as
a whole lot of different workshops. It just goes year round, but it's just different workshops throughout the year.
Okay, and you have your concierge service.
Yes, thank you for that. Concierge service is when you can actually go to our website, www.lmronline.org, and go to the board engagement tab, and you can sign up to give us information about, tell us you're interested in serving on the board, and give us the information. Or we tell people that think about your passion, think about your interests, and how your concerns, and match them up with organizations out there that could really satisfy you as an individual volunteer, but also can impact the organization too. You talk about stories. I've served on numerous boards throughout the years. My first board, I was 18 years old. And the boards that I've served on most recently have been boards that were passionate interests of mine because of my lived experiences. My father died of multiple myeloma. I served a short time on the leukemia and lymphoma board because of that. My mother had lupus for 25 years, and she had a kidney transplant. I served as board chair of the National Kidney Foundation for Virginia and West Virginia. That interest, that passion drove me into that area. I'm an adoptive parent. I now serve on the board of Children's Home Society, which deals with adoption and foster care, because it's an interest and passion of mine. And now I serve on the Jenkins Foundation board, which is a multi-million-dollar foundation that serves health needs. So in essence, I've kind of gone down the road of what interests me and what I have seen, what my parents went through, and how I can maybe make other individuals' lives better than what they experienced. That's the driver oftentimes when it comes to serving on boards. What's passionate to you, and what difference you think you can make?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I, just on a personal note, I feel like, I spent a period of time, and I still do to a lesser degree, focusing on helping people find their calling and a deep sense of purpose. And what I've seen is that the thing that we feel most challenged by, whether we experienced it directly, like if I had diabetes or a kidney transplant, or we were affected, our loved ones were affected by that, and then it affected us, are often the things that that feel most meaningful for us to give back. And whether that's in our work or how we just are helpful in our communities or families, or through our volunteer work and service, engaging in focusing on the things that have affected our lives, and then giving back in a way to make it better for others is just hugely meaningful work. And the research also shows that it is literally better for the giver, for somebody who's giving, like the psychological and emotional benefit is higher for the giver than the recipient. So that is such a great way to improve your own health and well-being, and to do it in a way that feels most meaningful to you. Such a total win-win, and there's still so much need out there, isn't there, Myra?
It is so much need out there, and so much need, and so much need for solutions, and so much need out there. You're right, and the needs they once again they're complex. It's just amazing what's going on out there in our community, and it gives us hope, and it gives you a sense of hope that when you engage on the board. Another piece I want to say about being on the board, you learn so much. You learn more about strategic planning and finances and risk management and hiring a CEO and HR and program development and assessments. You will learn those things, and as a board member, which will heighten your knowledge when it comes to those things. So it's a benefit there.
Yeah, and just in general, volunteering at all. Like if you're feeling less than in love with your current work and you want to change direction or engage in something that just feels meaningful and impactful, like one way to do that, to do both, is to volunteer, and you can really make a difference. And especially with leadership development, like engaging in a program like Leadership Quest. I mean, talking about transferable skills, right? Like, how does that people's resumes, Myra?
Oh gosh, and also it does a lot. And also, I want to say the last little piece that I missed on boards is that being on the board, a nonprofit board, increases an individual's empathy. Increases your empathy. Now you see how the other world lives. You see what other people are going through, and increases your empathy and understanding what people need. Going back to your point, and you just asked a question, I just went away. I'm sorry. What's the question you just asked me?
I think I said like how it can enhance your resume and your marketability and your transferable skills by participating in programs like Leadership Quest.
Yes, it can. And to have that motivation that you want to do better, and that's what becomes kind of like an after piece to it. I really don't want people coming to the program to boost up their resumes, but have a desire that they want to do more in the community. And then after effect is that oftentimes individuals' lives and work lives do change after they go through the program. That is very true. Yeah. That happens. So that, but also when you come into LMR, let me say this: if you come into our program, you're now part of a network of over 1,700 leaders that live in this community. That's a phone call you can pick up. We probably have over 300 lawyers. We have all kinds of CEOs. We have bankers, and we have community leaders and nonprofit execs, and we have people who are social workers and educators. It's just people from all walks of life. If you're looking for something, there's always someone you can pick up the phone and have a conversation with. It's that we're not, as one of our volunteers once said, we're not a clique. We're not a cult. We're not a set. We're a group of leaders who've gone through this program and who have a desire to serve and the ability to lead. That's our common thread. Our folks are just in every kind of political party, every religious organization. All our mindsets are different. We're different, and that's the beauty of it. We're not trying to change your mind when it comes to what you believe in, your religion or the politics or anything like that. We're just trying to arm individuals to be more impactful leaders in this diverse, complex world.
So wonderful. I'm so envious of your alumni community. Well,
come my way.
I know.
I'm a graduate. Come on. I mean, I don't know what happened before I got there, but come on, come see us. Absolutely.
I just might have to. So we're WRWK 93.9 FM. I'm Susanna Wu-Pong Calvert, here with Myra Goodman Smith, President and CEO of Leadership Metro Richmond. I am having the pleasure of discussing The Leader Within with Myra, and we would love to have you join the discussion by giving us a call at 464-1089, or pop something in the chat on Facebook if that's where you're streaming from. So Myra, in the next 10 minutes or so, could we shift gears and focus on what listeners can do to become better leaders besides engaging with LMR? What could they do right now? You've given some great advice already, but to the degree you could have specific suggestions would be so helpful.
Yeah, I think that leaders need to understand themselves and have a deeper understanding about yourself and what you want to do and how you want to lead and your abilities and the opportunities for improvement. And if you look at, I always tell individuals they should get a leadership framework. Like we all have values, things that we believe in. Have values when it comes to your leadership too. What do you believe in when it comes to your leadership? And so that kind of guides you where you want to go in that, and what's important to you. Once again, ordinary people can be ordinary leaders. You don't have to have a title. You think about your workplace. There are people in your workplace who don't have these high titles, but you see them as leaders every day because they're there serving, not because they know more, because they're there serving the needs of others. And oftentimes that leader is usually the person. I always say the leader in our organization is that person. When something goes wrong, people go to that person because there's a sense of comfort that person cares, and they actually care that something, may not be able to do something, but they're willing to listen. Be that, how do you want to show up? I guess in many ways, when it comes to your leadership and the desire to serve. Do you have a desire to serve? And read. I mean, there's so many different leadership models out there. One is the Robin Greenleaf. We talked about the servant leader. Forget the word servant, but the leaders that serve. But also, it's like the leadership challenge by Kuntz and Konsner. They talk about 5 distinct things that leaders should do in their work. Because once again, we're talking about abilities and behaviors. And doing your leadership, and those things influence others and lead others. But read, just have conversations about leadership. Think about the folks that you see as leaders, and what are those things about them, those attributes that you see that you could really appreciate and maybe even model in many ways. And the Kuntz and Ponson one, and I'm gonna say this real fast, like it's a great book. And it talks about modeling the way. Who would you model as a leader? Look around your organization. Who do you admire? Who do you respect? Think about that. And why is that person being successful? Think about what they're doing. How is that person being impactful? Think about what they're doing. And learn from others, or learn for yourself. And leaders very much a perception of others. Do people see you as leaders? And what do they see? Kind of turn it inside out and say, what do they see? Look at yourself in the mirror, and what do they see as a leader? We have been strained with the issue of leadership, and we've seen not so great leadership and wonderful leadership throughout our times. And it's really forced us to think about the point that we want to make a difference in this world that we live, and how to do that.
Wonderful. I love that list. In the meantime, we have a question from Rain in the chat. She says that she's interested in looking into possible corruption in the city government. Can you point her in the right direction of a nonprofit organization that has that as a focus?
Corruption in city government?
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anyone. Honestly, I can't think of an organization that focuses on that as a nonprofit. I don't know if you can get nonprofit status on. I don't know if it fits in within the nonprofit status realm of that piece. Usually, nonprofits are about for the greater good. So I'm not familiar, not at all.
Well, thank you for your question, Rain. Myra, can you talk a little bit about, like we were talking in the beginning about the importance of being outwardly focused and attending to the needs of others and caring and creating trust.
Right.
And being good listeners. Do you have any specific advice to listeners about those types of qualities? How they might, I guess, besides reading the Greenleaf book or Business Imposter, do you have any other specific suggestions around that?
I think that if you're in the midst of a leadership right now, kind of do a 360 and get people to tell you how they see you doing, which is not a bad thing. Just ask people ask people who will be honest with you, what they see and how you can improve when it comes to leadership. But once again, it's about the behaviors and the attributes that you bring to the table. It's not necessarily a checklist because all of us are so different and we approach leadership in so many different ways. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts. And so it's kind of hard to say, go spring to the top of the mountain because some folks are not going to do that. But really think about some programs and have conversations about it, but really think deeply about if you're in a leadership role, what is your responsibility to the role, but also responsibility to the people who are following you. And go back to that test I talked about. Are you a leader that serves? Are you serving? And do you know the individuals whom you serve? I used to always say that I worked at United Way for many years, and I knew something personal about every individual staff person. Not that I was being nosy, but I wanted to have relationships with people. How are you in your relationships with people? Do people come to you? Are people comfortable? Are you approachable when it comes to being a leader? And are you focused once again on serving others? Are you more focused on me being big and being a leader, and then you see how big I can get? But what's your motivation? Maybe that's the statement I want to make. What's the motivation that you have in leading? Because you're sincere about your leadership and sincere about helping individuals, and you're listening and accepting others, and you have foresight and all those other attributes. There's 10 attributes when it comes to being a leader that serves, that's a servant leader that, you can really think about that and have more conversations about it and see how you're doing. If you're leading and serving, nobody wants to follow you. It's something to think about.
Right.
What's going on?
Your motivation is coming through that you're more about serving you than them.
And that unselfish leadership is greatly needed. If people really think, you got to think about how people look at you. If they think you're in it just for yourself, and they have nothing to do with your equation, that's not a good place to be. And you won't survive long in the leadership role. Going back to those things back in history, think about those leaders who thought about just themselves and where they fail. I even see that locally or regionally and statewide. You think about leaders who did things really focused on themselves, and many times they fell and wasted. They fell away because it wasn't something that people supported, and they weren't in the game with it. So leadership is about your impact in the work with people and how you serve them and how you move all of it, even in a business, how you work together to reach your goal, to reach your mission, whatever the task is. How do you get people there? And just something to really think about. But be introspect. Once again, think about yourself and audit yourself. And think about what more can I do as a leader? How can I get better? Prepare myself.
Well, and I loved what you said about the leader is the one that people go to when there's they need help or a problem. Like I hope, if nothing else, that so many listeners hear that and go, "Oh, that's me," and then they can self-identify as a leader in a way that they hadn't really thought about before. So I hope you really just opened up a lot of people's eyes to the importance of leadership just being wanting to be of service, wanting to help people have better lives. and better futures. It's so beautiful.
You don't have to have initials behind your name to be a leader. You don't have to have a title behind your name. And I'll just say this quick thing. I remember when 9/11 happened, I remember folks went into my office, and that gave me a sense of, whoa, they want me to come and be a part of. They need me to be there. They need me to know. And think about that, when things do come up, when people come to you as that sense of security, if you will, even when it comes to things.
Well, thank you so much, Myra. We have a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure that you have time to tell everybody, maybe reiterate how they can find you or Leadership Metro Richmond. And I want to share just a few words about leadership resources we have at the foundation. So please go ahead.
Yeah. Leadership Metro Richmond, and we'll open up our applications for our next Quest class in February, but we will be having a lot of workshops, and also we will have a board connector, hopefully the last week in September. So go to our website, www.lmronline.org, and keep track of the activities we have going on. Just let us give us your email. We'll send you stuff. But really, just follow us on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn, and our website. It's going to have updated information, so it's a good place to go. But we would love to see folks come to our board connector and go to our website for our concierge program. So you want to sign up and let us know what you're interested in. We'll connect you with a nonprofit that may be interested in you being a board member.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. We could all use your help, everybody. And thank you for being such a gem in the community.
Thank you.
Much of the content that's available on a gift economy for individuals and organizations at the Foundation for Family and Community Healing were developed out of leadership development work. So our relationship well-being focuses on knowing yourself, and managing others, some of those qualities that Myra mentioned. And we have 2 modules now that are devoted to listening. So come check that out and develop your leadership and your resilience across your life at healingedu.org. And so that wraps up our hour of Finding Our Fit. Myra, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and the beautiful work you are doing and with LMR in Central Virginia, and for all of the ripples far and wide from your contribution. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. And thank you, Ron, for shepherding us through another hour of Finding Our Fit. Ron. Okay, well, I guess I will just talk about would you like to talk about anything else, Myra, until Ron takes us off the air? Otherwise,
I've said so much. I think somebody just jumped in.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you, Ron.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you again for being with us. We should do this more often. So, folks, in between Finding Our Fit, which comes to you every Thursday at 5, please ad-lib, invent, but find your fit, because that's what humans are all about. We got to find our fit. We can get this right. We don't have to keep repeating stupid errors. We can get this right. In fact, we're going to segue into a show where some people have turned their lives into doing things at work. And I think you find it very exciting. So this will have to come to a close. Save this date. Next week, we'll get back together. All right. So wave goodbye to your lovers out there in the audience, and we will be back. Finding Our Fit.